G'day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Leonard for the Ultimate Growth Experience podcast. So today, I have my good friend Susannah Colbatz. She is the current LLB BA student. She is the current CEO of ThinkPod, part of the Arts Dean's Honours List for 2017. She finished first in 3 different university courses and received 5 different scholarships, including a Auckland University Scholarship in 2016. She's the current director / producer of the German drama company. She's a scholar, she's an aspiring entrepreneur and legal professional. She was also a prefect at her high school at Kirikiri. Welcome to the podcast.
Glad to be here.
Great. So I talked to Radi last time, and he noted after the podcast that you'd be a worthy guest of my own. So, I looked at your CV obviously prior. The achievements and the scholarship you achieved is, they all clearly indicate that. So, how and why did you start working so hard, since a young age?
Well, I've always followed my family motto being if you can do something and there's no reason why you shouldn't do it, then in order to better yourself and to sort of make the most of your abilities, you should try and do as many things as you can. So during high school, I started just experimenting with different roles, different sports, different sort of leadership positions and cultural things, and did a lot through that, and I've just sort of continued that in university as well.
And even now, you've obviously continued, is there a specific reason besides the culture scape? Because I'm from a Korean background, and my parents have always told me, work hard, diligently, always. They just get stuck in. But anything else beyond that culture scape?
The thing that I love about coming to university and meeting new people and sort of getting involved in different activities is just meeting people and seeing their drive and their passion and seeing the amazing things that they're creating, whether that be creating amazing feats in sporting or with the German drama company creating this piece of art in the community, or even coming to university, reading about all these academics and the amount of work and time that they've put in purely to make the world a better place, make the world a more knowledgeable place and sort of advance our species. And I just find that really inspiring and want to sort of try and contribute to that as much as I can.
And in that point though, were there particular people that really got you going? Like a specific hero, heroine, or maybe a role model that you saw when you're 8-year-old or 7-year-old or something like that?
Not so much. I don't tend to stick to specific people, but I look for qualities in people that inspire me. So, for example, my team sailing coach in high school, Sir Colbatz, he was just the most kind and patient and compassionate person, and he used the fact that he was able to work with people and really bring out the best in people to make a huge impact in the sailing world. And that was so inspiring because the fact that he was able to relate to those people, and he was just, no matter what was happening, he was always kind and always compassionate and just a really lovely person to be around. And that's what got him the success that he has achieved. And so, I think it's very important to look at values and qualities and try and emulate those rather than emulating a particular person's career path or sort of looking at what they did, but rather look at why they did it.
That's actually a completely different perspective, because prior, most of my guests have all been, for example, Melissa Lee, the national MP, she was like, Margaret Thatcher, So, do you know what happened to him now? Do you know what he's up to?
As far as I know, he's happily retired in Kirikiri. He was sort of coaching us as a side project when he'd been retired from the main sporting world. So he's still up there with his little macadamia farm.
That's phenomenal. All right. So like myself and other guests, you are of immigrant background. So what's it like balancing between your German heritage and your Kiwi identity?
So I feel like I was very fortunate to come to New Zealand at an age where I was able to have a solid grounding in my family and in the cultural traditions that came from that German background. But at the same time, I was able to really adapt to the New Zealand way of living, adapt to not having a German accent in English. So I try not to, I don't feel like I need to dwell on it very much. I'm just of both worlds. That was my childhood, was Germany, and I'll always carry that with me. but my life and growing up and sort of becoming an adult has happened in New Zealand and was very much shaped by the culture here. And I'm sure that in the future I'll probably move to a whole bunch of different places as well, and they will all shape my identity in different ways. I think I consider myself a global person. I don't feel a very strong tie to needing to define myself as like German or Kiwi or whatever. It's just all these different influences make up me.
So you're considering yourself an individual rather than like a part of an identity, or specifically that's correct?
Yeah, I mean, I still feel proud if I see like, a great achievement that was made by German scientists, or a great thing that New Zealand did. It's still sort of like I have a connection to that. But yeah, I don't let that sort of fill into my identity very much.
I'm thinking of the 2014 World Cup for some weird reason.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, right, so we all know that you are currently the president of a recognizable organization, which is ThinkPod. And obviously a lot of my university colleagues and our colleagues, in fact, know about it through the business school and also the art school. So tell us about the organization itself. Obviously, Radi talked more about his experience in my previous episode rather than ThinkPod itself. So can you elaborate that?
Yeah, so ThinkPod was previously Synergy, was an organisation started in 2013 by 3 university students who wanted to find a way to engage students in the sort of non-profit charity sector in a more meaningful way than just volunteering and collecting like donations and things. So they realised that students had a lot of skills that they gained in their university courses that they weren't able to actually put into any practical context until afterwards, and that a lot of those skills had real value to local social change organisations, non-profits, charities, community groups. So they started the ThinkPod program, where we get small teams of students to partner with a particular organisation for one semester, and they work and collaborate with that organisation throughout the semester to solve a problem or look at a new idea that the organisations had, or try and make a meaningful impact on the way that the organisation runs as a whole, rather than just going and collecting some donations off the street. So I joined ThinkPod as a consultant in my first semester of university.
Straight at it.
Yep, straight at it. It just seemed like a really great opportunity to meet some really great people and get involved in sort of what university life is like. And it was a lot of hard work, but it was super valuable, and I made a lot of great connections through that. So I stuck around and went on to the executive board last year as the administrative officer, and then working with Radi as the CEO, and then moved into the president's role this year, and will be continuing next year as well.
Until June 2019, or when's the year end date?
December 2019, yeah.
So how many years do you have at university again?
I've got 2 years left.
So a year down, you're still going to be president and running the organization. A lot of responsibilities. So in terms of ThinkPod, what was the most meaningful / sort of inspiring thing that you would have said you've done while you were in any of the roles, as a consultant or as an administrator or as a CEO / president?
I think the most meaningful thing was seeing the presentations that the consultants made to the client at the end of the program. So obviously I gave my own presentation when I was a consultant with my team, and then the executive members always go along to different presentations from the other teams as well. So I've seen quite a number of them, and seeing the great report, the amount of work that the consultants had created, and seeing them, light up when they're talking about their ideas, and having these really great discussions with their client about the work they've done, and how the organisations can then use that to move forward, was just, that's why we exist. That's why this organisation exists. That's what drew me to it in the first place. And yeah, that's what motivates me to sort of keep working at it, keep pushing to make the organisation better, and keep getting more students involved so they can grow and have that meaningful experience as well.
So how many students are there involved at the moment, like in 2018 semester 2?
So each semester we normally take on 4 clients, and we normally have 5 students in a team. So about 20 to 25 students per semester.
So you're technically running 20 to 25 students and doing other projects and doing all this at the same time, yeah?
Well, I mean, we've got a big exec. We've got 7 to 8 people on our exec
Right.
team, and about 10 to 15 management members who help out with recruitment and running the workshops, mentoring the students. So it's not just me, but yeah, it is can be quite daunting, the responsibility sometimes.
How do you manage your time then? Like, because this is something that I think a lot of people don't really talk about, is that how do you structure your lifestyle and schedule it to a point where you're like, I am maximizing my time day to day and week to week?
Well, I don't feel I've reached that point quite yet,
I think
but
you're
I'm
doing
working
quite well
on
on
it. I tend to, I work very focused, so I set aside long stretches of time to do one particular project. I normally work through the weekends as well. And yeah, I just get stuck into things. In terms of managing it overall, I've got a bullet journal that is my life.
I'm seeing it right in front of me. I mean, I haven't taken a photo of it yet, but yeah,
it's
filled.
Throughout high school and sort of the first year of university, I was working through, like, I tried sort of online calendars, I tried like daily diary things. None of it was really able to be as flexible as I needed it to be, and I'm someone that definitely prefers writing things down to sort of electronic means of remembering things. So yeah, I came across the concept of a bullet journal, and that's really improved my ability to just keep track of what I'm doing and not sort of miss things in the huge amount of things that I need to do. Sometimes I drop the ball on small tasks or sort of don't remember them until it's really time to do them. So yeah, that's been sort of a key change, I think.
On that point though, Susannah, I think it's actually true that, because I think Harvard did a study about this, that actually students do better through physical copies of paper and writing notes down hand to hand, pen to pen, rather than electronic iPods or iPads or this gadget that we see, in fact, can be more of a distraction. So probably made the right decision in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like studies like that are always good, and I think, personally, I think most people probably do sort of fit into that category, who work better with pen and paper. But I see a lot of the times people make those studies and then they start dissing everyone who does use laptops in lectures and things. But I know a number of people who have really tried handwriting and it just doesn't work for them, whether it's because of sort of learning disabilities, or whether they are someone that really needs to be able to multitask, or if the lecturer mentions something they immediately want to Google it. So yeah, I think it's important for everyone to try out different styles of learning and see what works for them, because yeah, big studies are good, but I feel like we should use it as motivation to try out different things.
So context and trying new things and just being open-minded about figuring out what works for you technically, yeah. Definitely,
yeah, and being reflective on it as well, making sure that you actually go back and spend some time thinking about, you know, I was productive at this point, why was that? Or I wasn't productive here, why was that? What changes can I make? What can I learn from that? That kind of reflective thinking, I think, is really important to trying to be more productive.
If I could go back to your point, because I mentioned that you've finished first in 3 different university courses. Now, none of my mates have done that. I'll just be honest and say right out of the park. So how did you do that? Besides just the hard working and the diligence, or like, what made you so click to finishing top in those courses?
So the courses that I finished top in were sociology and philosophy courses, and I think there's sort of three reasons that I was able to do that. The first one is I really engaged with the subject. I spent a lot of time telling my friends about it and sort of thinking about it, doing extra reading and research for my essays, and then once I had ideas for the essays or about the topics, I would then go talk to the lecturers about it. I would normally try and put some sort of slightly different spin on the things I was writing in my essays, or apply it to a different context. And going back and talking to the lecturers about that is sort of a key point, because then they know what you're doing and they can tell you if you're actually taking this the completely wrong direction, and at the same time they can sort of see that you're wanting to get as much as you can from the course, and they can point you in the right direction on other resources. So yeah, really engaging with the materials, talking to the lecturers, and again sort of figuring out how you learn and how you learn best. So for me that involves a lot of talking to people, a lot of big brainstorms and things, trying to see connections, trying to see how everything fits together, rather than just sitting down and like reading textbook after textbook. That's not how I learn. So if I'd spent my time doing that, there's no way I would have done that well in the courses. But because I'd figured out how I learn and how I remember things and how I structure essays, that helped me put most of the time into gaining a deeper understanding of the material, rather than sort of keeping up with the coursework or anything like that.
It just seems like you just exceeded the minimum of what lecturers just want you to do, and then just went further down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I feel like university is quite difficult, because the university says like you should do 10 hours a week per paper, and then you get some lecturers who seem to take that as gospel and give you a huge amount of readings to do, and then you get other lecturers who try and focus for good reasons on getting everyone up to a sort of minimum standard. And I think both of those have advantages and disadvantages. So I think it's important to figure out if your lecturer is the one that's trying to make sure that everyone gets a good understanding, to go to them and go, hey, I think I've got the good understanding, can you help me get to the better understanding?
That sums up pretty much, because I've been doing that a lot. I've been talking to a lot of people about what I've been thinking about political theory and political order, international relations sort of stuff. So yeah, confirmation bias, but whatever, right? So what are your daily habits and micro habits like?
So habits wasn't really a thing that I thought about much until sort of like halfway through, or sort of through this year. Obviously in school you don't really get much of a chance to actually think about habits, because your time is so regimented, like there's no real opportunity to actually create any habits. In terms of my habits, yeah, the bullet journaling is one of the key things. Having that always on hand, having a pen always on hand, so that if anything pops up, any ideas, I've got somewhere to immediately write it down. Other than that, sleep, getting enough sleep.
8 hours of sleep?
Yeah, or at least sort of, I don't really function under 6, but sort of 6 to 8 is good. That's very important to me. I don't skimp on that, because otherwise the whole of the next day is basically just walking around like a zombie, and I'm not actually going to learn anything in the courses. So I'm going to need to go back and re-listen to lectures, or read meeting minutes, because I was zoning out or whatever, and that's just not productive, not efficient. Other than that, I think figuring out a diet that works for you. So I'm someone, I don't eat a lot in the morning. I tried for ages, breakfast is the most important meal of the day and everything, but I'm just not someone that can eat a lot in the morning. And so figuring that out, and figuring out how much food and what kind of food and what kind of things I should stay away from if I'm trying to be productive. Having 3 cups of coffee at 6 o'clock at night is not that good.
So you're technically telling me that you do intermittent fasting, because I'm really into that, if you can tell.
Okay, well, I don't think I'd call it that. Like, I do have sort of some juice and some almonds and things in the morning. It's just I try not to let other people's stereotypes about meals get in the way. So like, in New Zealand it would be like breakfast, you have to have something quite big. Lunch in New Zealand tends to be quite small, and dinner tends to be very big. In Germany you generally have a cold dinner and a hot lunch, so I stick more to that. I try and have a bigger lunch rather than dinner, but again I feel like it's just coming back to that sort of self-reflection and knowing what works for you.
The individuality.
Yeah.
Totally. So, do you have particular heroes in your life that inspired to head in you in an ambitious direction, possibly?
I think so. Apart from dairy, obviously, I sort of look at people who have created or dedicated their life, or their time at least in a certain point of their life, to really engaging deeply with a topic, or really creating something amazing that's going to outlive them and add value to sort of to our lives as a whole. So people who I look at who I feel like have done that are Terry Pratchett and Brandon Sanderson.
Oh yeah.
Both very prolific authors who have quite different focuses, but who...
Because Terry Pratchett's one's like a very like sort of story / fiction novel sort of type, isn't it? I've heard of his work before.
Yeah, I mean they're both fiction authors. The thing that I love about Terry Pratchett's work is his dedication to social commentary in his works. I love rereading all of his works, because every time you read it you realise that, oh, this is actually a little commentary about this, or you see all these new metaphors and new details. I've read people talking about his works and the amount of detail that he goes into in getting things right. So, for example, one of the books sets up in the city they set up this, what they call a clack system. So it's sort of like a communication system, kind of like Morse code almost, but someone was talking about it and saying that it's amazing because the way he described it, like as a computer science major, that actually works. And so that level of detail and commitment to his art in a way, I find really inspiring. And even though I'm not intending to be an author, I think aiming to put that level of dedication and understanding into your work is something that sort of drives me to keep achieving.
It just seems like you just love excellence as a whole.
I guess so, yeah. I mean, I find the term excellence, I don't know if I'm necessarily in agreement with that, because I feel like that implies it has to be big or greater than other people, whereas I think just seeking meaning and seeking dedication to whatever you've decided to dedicate yourself to, whether it's like your garden or writing a book or creating a new like theory of the atom or whatever, whatever you choose to dedicate yourself to, as long as you sort of go for that and give it 110%, I feel like that's the thing that inspires me.
So are you at a point in your life where like Susannah knows exactly what she wants to do? Or are you...
No, not at all.
No,
I don't think Susannah will ever know what she wants to do.
Because I think a lot of people, including Radi himself, because he's interested in artificial intelligence, I'm interested in political theory, but it seems like we're all in a place we're trying to discover stuff, technically, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my majors in philosophy and sociology and law sort of represent three main areas that I am interested in and see myself continuing to discover things about. At the moment I'm in a research position for philosophy through the summer scholarship program, and that's been really, really great, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. So yeah, I don't think I'm ever going to narrow myself down to just one particular field, but yeah, those are my three interests at the moment.
Let's see in 10 years when I interview you again.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely that. So did you ever have a low point in your life that just said, oh God, I'm going downhill, I need to get my life together or something?
Yeah, quite a few times.
Really?
I feel, so in year 12 of high school, for example, I was very, I'd overcommitted myself a lot, and I hadn't learnt to reach out to people to try and help with that kind of workload. So instead I'd sort of shut myself off. I'd let things fall by the wayside that needed doing, and I was just extremely stressed and really not in a good place. And reaching back out to people and talking to them about the amount of things that I needed to do, particularly because a lot of them didn't realise that I was also involved in a number of other things, and just sort of being open with people about that. And then working together to figure out how we could get the things done that needed doing. that was a very difficult time. Similar thing came up again this year, trying to balance ThinkPod with Part 2 Law with the German drama company. Again, just making sure to know when I'm starting to go into negative habits and negative spirals and reaching out to people, going back to the positive habits and the positive interests that I've got to sort of take a break from the stresses. I practice calligraphy and cross-stitching, so those are my sort of two things to take a break from my work with. And so, yeah, knowing when things are starting to slip downhill and sort of identifying when that happens and having tools in place on how to get yourself back up.
So not overcommitting to things and understanding that, be careful, right, typically? Yeah, I think, not overcommitting these things and keeping an eye on where your energy levels are at. Recognizing this other thing's come up, I really want to do it and I think I can do it now, but sort of thinking, okay, in 2 months, how are things going to look then? Is that going to be too much of a strain? Excellent. So do you have, what are your aspirations? As in, we talked about it a little briefly, for what would Susannah like to do when she's, let's say, 45 in her career? Ooh, I don't know. Moving to New Zealand and having my parents have very sort of untraditional career paths, switching between different industries, sort of taught me that having a plan's a good idea, but you're probably not going to follow, or I'm not the kind of person that's going to follow the plan. So at the moment, I'm thinking, finish uni, I want to try out being a legal professional and then see how that goes for a couple of years. And at that point, I feel like I've got a little bit more, I'd have more experience and know whether I want to come back and sort of do more academia type things. Do I want to stick with legal profession? And if so, do I want to do it in New Zealand or overseas? Do I want to go back to the sort of entrepreneurship things that I'd done in high school? At the moment, all of those seem equally good options, and I don't anticipate really making a decision on that for a few years yet. You can do all of them, in fact. There are a number of professionals that have done all of them. In fact, that's sort of what I like to do. Doing my academic studies and being a personal trainer and all those things as well. So I think you can do that, definitely for that. So do you have any advice for young women who are entering university or at high school who are listening to this podcast for the first time? So I think advice for young women specifically would just be don't let anyone tell you that you are powerless or that you can't do things or that you shouldn't act in a certain way or be a certain thing. The world's changing quite a lot and there are still little pockets of old stereotypes or old views out there, and it's important that we move to shift those attitudes, but at the same time the majority of at least the sort of New Zealand or Western context, you as a young woman are not limited by anything except your own perceptions. So if you come up against difficulties, don't try and let anyone tell you that you don't deserve to be where you are, and reach out to people. If you do come across difficulties, reach out to people because there are lots of people that are happy to help any young person. In terms of sort of advice just for young people in general, particularly coming to uni, going back to what we talked about previously, like know yourself, be reflective, try out new things, push yourself out of your comfort zone and figure out what works for you, and find those things that you are interested in and that you want to pursue, and that's all you can do. Anything. Yeah. And work hard. Yeah. Obviously. Do you have a social media account or something that my followers could find you on? Not really. I don't use social media much. I guess you can check out my LinkedIn, but yeah. I'll leave Susannah's LinkedIn in the description below. Thank you for listening, everybody. And thank you, Susannah. Thank you.